Hello, everyone. My name is Mirna, and on behalf of the Mindalia TV team, we want to welcome you to Mindalia live streaming, where thousands of people around the world gather to see the lectures and interviews organized by Mindalia TV. Today with us, Angel Rebo, CEO consultant, TV host, international public speaker, and president of the Wisdom for Kids Foundation, is going to be interviewing Jose Pinero. Jose is the founder and chief mentor at Latino Leadership Performance, LLP. He has a unique skill set of 20 plus years of Fortune 100 experience leading diversity and multicultural efforts in the tech industry, being a gifted storyteller and applying strategic and systemic approaches to complex problems. Without starting with them, we want to remind you that Mindalia is a nonprofit organization. Our only mission is to share information that can help raise the level of consciousness around the world, and you can help us. How? Subscribing to our channel if you haven't done it yet, leaving us a positive comment down below, or sharing this video with someone that you know that is going to benefit from the content that we're going to be sharing here today. Also, while we are live streaming, we have the active chat. Is the screen that you're going to be seeing right here on my left-hand side. You can interact with us through there. We please ask you to follow the format. What is the format? The word question in caps, the place where you are seeing us from, and the actual question. At the end of the interview, Jose will be answering. Last but not least, Mindalia TV broadcasts every weekday in Portuguese, Spanish, and English, as you already know. So if you have content that you would like to share, valuable content, you can go to our website. In the top of the screen, you will find a link. That link is going to take you to a form that you can fill out, and our technical team will be contacting you. Also, we invite you to visit our different channels so you can take a look and find out what we are developing there. Without further delay, we're going to be leaving you with Angel and with Jose. Guys, welcome to Mindalia live streaming. The screen is yours.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mirna. And thank you very much, Jose, for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Absolutely. So, I was very, very, very attentive, really listening to the introduction by Mirna. And she was telling many different things which are so important in today's lives, which is like working on a diverse environment and working on diverse large corporations. There's a lot of people watching Mindalia TV every day that work on large corporations in a diverse environment. According to your experience, what would you say is the number one, number two things, the most important things that you see every day? What's going on in the diversity of the corporate world today, Jose?
Yeah. So many things are happening today. We work on coaching professionals in top corporations. So as we help them grow their career, we see every day some of the challenges that they face. And what we're seeing is that a lot of people are saying, I don't feel welcome. I don't feel that I can be myself when I show up to work. And there are several reasons for that. Number one, the world, as you say, is becoming more and more diverse, more multicultural, different people, different ways of thinking, different generations. So a lot of people are saying, when I go to a corporate job, I don't find other people like myself in the high positions. So there's a lack of role models. That's one. The second thing we hear is that people say, hey, I want to be promoted, I want to grow, but I don't have a mentor, I don't have a sponsor. So how do I get that? And then the other thing that we see consistently is many people saying, my boss or my manager doesn't get me. He or she doesn't understand who I am. So what we do a lot of work to help professionals understand those things and help them by giving them the tools, information, so they can start having the right conversations. But this is super important because the world is changing. The US is changing too. And we need to have a labor force that mirrors and represents the world of customers and partners out there. So if companies don't learn how to really work with all kinds of people, they're going to face a challenge in getting the right talent into their corporations. So we see this consistently every day.
So what would you say the companies are doing today? Have you seen companies like taking action, being proactive in trying to solve this situation?
So first, I want to say that a lot of companies want to improve and they want to fix the situation, but many of them don't know how. And our vision, the vision I have, is one where two things need to happen. On one side, the employee needs to become more aware of what's going on and up-level their skills. On the other side, we need to get the executives and the managers in the company to better understand and learn more about how their employees of diverse backgrounds think and feel. And then you get those two people. This one up-levels the performance. This one understands more. They have to meet in the middle, because it cannot be the responsibility of only the employee or the responsibility of all the company, only the company. And there are many companies out there. For example, some companies are more progressive in their thinking than others. I'll give you an example. Facebook is doing very interesting things, coaching a lot of their employees and investing in leadership development. There are other companies that are trying different things, but I think you need to attack both sides, the side of the employee and also the side of the manager and the executive, because both are required for real progress to happen.
You are probably breaking the ice on a lot of companies when you started this conversation. Mm-hmm. What would you say is the number one objection that you find, that you see? Yeah. First thing.
Yeah. First of all, everybody agrees with the philosophy and the goal of having a more diverse workforce. The challenge is how to do it, right? And then the second thing, which is very interesting, is who pays for it? Who has the budget? So we work with some companies and they are saying, we would love to do this leadership development training. We would love to have a speaker. We would love to run a program. We would love to provide coaching. But then the hard part is who pays for it. And in big companies, budgets are complicated. So I think a lot of the work we do is we have to sell and convince not one team in a company, but several teams within a corporation so they can agree and they can see the benefit. But ultimately, think about this. If a company, a major corporation, loses one employee because he or she doesn't feel welcome, how much is that worth to them? Replacing one employee in a big company, it's more than $200,000. Just replacing one employee. So these programs, when you work and you help not one, but 20, 30, 50, 100 employees to find a way to work better within the corporation and to feel more welcome and to feel that they have a great relationship with their boss, that pays off pretty quickly. Gallup has a study that says that the number one driver of employee satisfaction is, no surprise, it's their boss, their manager. 70% of the entire satisfaction, it's all dependent on one question. Does your manager have your back? Is your manager looking out for you? And does your manager believe in you, right? All those things. And if we work on that first, a lot of other things are easier and come after.
Wow, that's fascinating. This $200,000 for replacing someone in a job position, is that something? Is like a standard? Is something like a rule of thumb that you've developed throughout time?
I'm talking. That's the numbers we have seen in large corporations. If an employee makes $100,000 per year, these are medium to level or higher up professionals. 100,000 plus the bonuses, plus healthcare, plus all the benefits, plus the cost of retraining somebody else, it easily surpasses 200K.
Wow, that's a lot. Okay, so you said then everybody acknowledges the issue.
Yeah,
they would like to do something, but there's a gray area in there that who's gonna pay for this? Who would you say is of all those different functional areas inside the company? Who would you say is the number one who is feeling the pain, who's feeling the burden of having to face the consequences of not dealing with the diversity?
It may change by companies, but in many cases, we see the diversity team, because they are tasked with keeping a diverse talent pool within the company. And once they have Latinos, African Americans, Asian Americans, LGBT, like different groups, once they have them, they want to keep them and they want to keep them happy. So the moment somebody says, I don't feel like this place really welcomes me, and they start looking elsewhere, that happens. So diversity teams, leadership and development teams, HR, of course, like the leaders of HR, we work with HR leaders. Those are the teams that are closer to this, because they feel the pain, and they're looking also at scorecards and success metrics that measure exactly how many people do we have of these groups, and what is the retention rate.
Wow. So let's change a little bit the perspective, because we're talking about the corporation, but what happens? Let's say, we have obviously Mindalia TV originally originated in Spain, and we have most of our, the people that are watching us, they have a Latino origin, or they have some relatives, or so. I guess you've seen a lot of Latinos working in corporations, and then
absolutely
you've seen this happening to Latinos. So let's put ourselves in the boots of the people that see this every day. So could you give us a little bit more of details? How do they feel? What do they suffer? What are those things that they see every single day?
Yeah. So because we coach so many Latinos in corporations, we see this over and over again. So I'll share with you some of the findings. When we look at all the people we coach, we hear some consistent themes that repeat over and over again. One of them is, I feel like I have to hide part of me being Latino when I show up to work. We hear that consistently. We hear my boss or my manager doesn't understand me. We hear, I want my boss or my boss's boss to treat me as a friend or as family. We hear other things that some of them are kind of funny, and they fall into stereotypes. But we hear, I get the feedback that I am too quiet in meetings, because remember this, for Latinos, we respect authority. And if somebody who's more senior than you is speaking, we don't interrupt, we don't correct, we don't say, excuse me, stop right there, right? We're not like that. So in a meeting, a Latino employee who could be a fantastic employee could be just listening and quiet. And if they don't say anything at the meeting, that person's manager at the end of the meeting can say, well, Jorge, I think Jorge is good, but is he really committed to this project? I don't see his passion, or I don't see that he's contributing to the discussion. And what's happening is that Jorge is listening actively, but he's not speaking out. So we see that. Then on the other side, something that we work with our coaches, it's about the communication style. The Latino culture provides high context in communications. We are storytellers. We love giving, telling the story, what happened, which was the struggle, all the details, right? All that. Sometimes you get a manager or an executive who says, hey, Angel, what's the status on project X? And if you say, well, let me tell you, first, there was this issue. I had to go and talk to purchasing and convince them to do this and that. And there was a lady that didn't want to do it, but I worked with her and I did all these things. And then I went to, to accounting, and they did this and that. And now it's working. That's a very Latino style communication. But maybe the manager only wanted to hear the project is on track and it's 10% above budget. That's it. So we have to figure out, depending on the situation and who's the target audience, when to provide a lot of context and also when to just go straight to the answer. And sometimes we coach our professionals that work with us and say, start with the result. Say it's on budget and it's beating, the target by 10%. And then as your manager, would you like more context or more detail? And that way you lead with the punchline, and then you provide more context or more detail. Because the challenge, if you do it the other way around, the manager can say, well, one is good, but wow, he talks a lot and he doesn't get to the point. And again, it's kind of placing some kind of a perception on us. So what we do is work with people to help them understand what we call blind spots, things that are part of our culture, but when we show up at work, they may be seen or misunderstood in different ways.
So going back to the coaching that you provide the individuals, okay? So the Latinos, in this case, we're talking about Latinos that they are in that position. So how would you start that process? So they start feeling comfortable with the process, feeling comfortable with you, with your team. Excuse me. So that they start feeling that there's a way out of all those concerns and fears that you just mentioned. How does the process go?
Yeah, the process, it's a lot. Like we joke that it's like being a therapist or a lawyer, right? So first of all, there's 100% trust. Whatever I hear, or the team hears, doesn't share with anybody else, because we need trust to be able to get to the core of the issues. So there's a lot of trust. And then we go through the different challenges that people face. And sometimes people are very clear on exactly what are the challenges. Sometimes it's a discovery process. But then once we identify an issue, we say, okay, let's figure out what are the right factors affecting the situation. Let's make sure that the person, our client, is clear on the outcome of what they want. And then we work on a strategy together and a plan, because some things can be fixed easily. Some other things, for example, fixing the relationship with your manager, that takes months, right? But we have seen, I just talked to somebody yesterday, and in a month and a week, she was able to turn around the situation with her manager. She was really worried about things on August 28th, and yesterday she said, hey, I turned this around. My manager is already treating me in a different way. I'm getting along better with her, and the communication is better. So the last part of this is that what we call the role playing, which is practicing the conversation. So I or one of the other coaches can play the role of the manager, and the employee plays the role of himself or herself, and we go through the conversation. Just like, in my former life, I would prepare executives for interviews. Like, we would practice the interviews and we would ask them the most difficult and rude questions. We do the same thing with our coachees. And that, it's like learning the right words, learning how to handle objections, learning how to handle difficult statements. And at the end, it's practicing that skill. And then when you get to the real conversation, it's much easier.
How did Jose end up doing this? What's your because Mirna referred to that really briefly, but I would like you to share a little bit of your personal story. How did Jose end up doing what you do today?
So it's kind of funny, because I was having a conversation with somebody earlier today, and I told this person, I've been doing exactly the same thing forever. In college, people would come to me for advice, and I would kind of like break down the situation into some kind of a framework and factors, and then tell them what approach they could take. And so I think that's part of who I am. But I spent over 20 years in corporate America. And then after that, I created my own company. So I have also been an entrepreneur. So I've been on both sides of the situation. And I work a lot in communications and PR and training executives on how to speak, how to do interviews, how to announce things. A lot of it is two things. One, communications, and the other side, it's psychology and understanding the human psyche, the human nature. And we bring those things together. We understand how businesses work and how companies behave. So it's bringing all those things together. I think that I am curious about life and about how people think. And that has given me insights and a desire to learn more and to look at some of the best research out there to see what works. And then I saw that nobody was applying the Latino cultural factor to this, because there's great leadership development programs out there. But I look around and there wasn't anything specifically for Latinos. And we have a model called the ABCs of Latino leadership, where we look at what are the assets of being Latino, what are the advantages of that, what are the potential blind spots, things we don't see but that exist and that others can see. And based on that, we help people create their own competencies. So we look at that. We have a model called the Latino Cultural Blueprint, which is what are the priorities in terms of values for us Latinos. And that explains so much. I cannot tell you how many times we've heard somebody saying, I show up on Monday morning and my boss goes, hey, where's the report? And why can he or her, they say to me, why can he or her, tell me or ask me, how was my weekend? How's my family? How am I doing? Because we want to feel like a human being. We want to feel like a full person. And the beauty of this is that I think Latinos in that part, we are ahead of the curve, because we're more community oriented. And I think everybody at the end of the day wants to feel a connection to others, and they want to belong. They want to feel that they are part of something. So these are good things. And the more we help companies embrace some of these qualities, the better they will do. But it's a lot of work, and that's why we help people. And then about myself, I just love, making things happen. Since I was a kid, I am a glass half full kind of person, and I see opportunities and I go, well, you know what? We can do this, or there's an opportunity to create something. And when somebody else says, hey, that has never been done, I go, great, let's do it. And I love, coming up with ideas and working together with people and helping a bunch of people see the idea, believe in the outcome or the goal, and then have everybody work together towards that. And it doesn't matter whether they are employees or friends or a matrix organization. I love going to people and saying, hey, here's the vision for what we want to do. And also, here's how working on this helps you and your team. Because if we make life easier for others or better, or if we add value to what other people are doing, more people will come on board and will join us in our projects. So that's kind of like my philosophy of life. And I love talking to people and doing this. And I get great, feedback from people. Somebody yesterday was telling me like that she felt that the work she's doing with us is changing her life. It's really helping her achieve her goals. And there's nothing better than that for us.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. In the beginning, Mirna mentioned the word storyteller.
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself a storyteller?
Now I think I consider myself. But I'll say this, I like, and this will sound weird doing an interview, but I prefer to listen than to speak. I love listening to people's stories, and I'm typically very concerned about not speaking too much. So I like to tell stories, or I like to share things with people, and I hope that people enjoy when I do that. So I guess that, yeah, now I have to accept that I'm a storyteller.
Excellent. Have you worked with any other group outside the Latino community?
Yes, we have, and I have. So when I was at Microsoft and I was doing multicultural marketing and diversity, I worked with women's groups, African Americans, Asian Americans, LGBT, special abilities, all these other teams. And we have also coached people who are not Latinos, women and people of other groups. And the interesting things is that some of the details are different on the outside, but a lot of the core issues are the same, because nobody wants to go to a job where they are not treated as somebody who's important or somebody that's respected. I joke with my friends, if you find somebody that doesn't care about being respected or being loved, please let me know. I want to meet that person, because that's a human nature. That's everybody wants something like that. So a lot of the themes that we see, we focus on the specifics of Latinos, but some of the underlying themes are very universal.
What would you think are the most, 1, 2, 3 things that you've seen in common of all those different communities and diverse groups? What would you say that are the most important factors that you've realized, you've seen?
Yeah. So one, I think all these groups, including ourselves, we're trying to find our place in the universe, in the world. And because many of these groups have suffered through either injustices or setbacks or challenges, we're still catching up. We're still trying to, and there's something within us that it's like, I want to be at the same level with the other people, right? So there's a struggle, and there's una lucha, like a struggle, like a fight that all of them share. And then the other thing I would say, we all want to be heard. Like, people want to be heard. And sometimes when somebody goes through a very hard time, the most important thing, it's not giving them a solution in the moment. It's listening to them, empathizing, and just telling them, I understand what you're going through, or I feel your pain, or wow, that must be so hard. So I think those are very universal themes.
You mentioned before about one of the most important consequences of not taking into account this blind spot is financial burden for the company, for replacing, for all those kinds of things.
Yes.
Would you say that in general companies are aware of that today? Do you think that there are other consequences, maybe not unseen, that might unfold in the future?
Some companies are aware of the consequences. Some companies are so busy just with the day-to-day and running the business that they either don't see it or they don't pay attention. The other consequence, and we'll see this happening more and more in the future, is that great marketing happens and great sales when you can really target on a specific audience and you provide a product or a service that really serves that need and fulfills that need. So the best marketing, it's about understanding exactly who's your audience, providing a message that is relevant and specific and meaningful to that person. And then, when they buy the product, they need to really feel like, wow, I spent $20 on this. What I get from this product is worth more than $20, right? So for companies to really create the products that serve the right audiences the right way, they need to have the right people inside. So my theory, and this is a lot of people agree, if we don't have the right minds in the companies creating the products to serve the right audiences, they're going to end up creating some products that miss the mark. So there are also some business consequences on the revenue and the sales side and on the profit. And also there's studies on loyalty. Once somebody is loyal to your brand or your product, the profitability of that customer is so much higher. So there are financial implications on things like this.
Wow, that's fascinating. So what's next? What's next for you? What's next for your business? Where would you like, or where do you see the world going? The workplace going, the place where we go every single day. Where do you see that going, and where do you see yourself and the value that you bring to this world going? Jose?
Yeah. So I'll divide the question into two parts. Let's talk first about where the workplace is going, and then I'll talk last about where I'm going. So I see companies continue to evolve. I think companies need to become more personal. And by that I mean to cater in the same way they cater to their customers and do the right targeting, they need to cater to their employees and to their partners the same way. So companies need to become more nimble and more flexible, and they need to be able to adapt better. We're going to see a huge change in the next 20, 25 years, maybe even sooner. And this part is kind of scary because it's about automation and artificial intelligence. A lot of the jobs that we know today, specifically the ones that deal with repetitive tasks or doing the same thing day after day, those jobs are going to go away. So I think it's super important to inform people, whether the people who are already in the workforce or the people coming into the workforce, to look for jobs where they can really add value. So I think that that's super important because the economy will change. I think we will see more and more people who will become specialists in very detailed things, very targeted things. And that the gig economy, so people who are doing their own business, serving different customers. So you will have people that will go into large corporations, and you will have people that will become more and more entrepreneurs, small business owners, and they will find their niche. And that, to me, part of the work I'm doing is to help bring access to the right information so Latinos, women, and other minority groups can get these insights, and they can get ahead of all those changes and prepare themselves. Because I want Latinos to succeed. And then the way in which they're going to succeed is by giving them everything that we have learned from like top Latinos who are super influential in the US, or the professionals we coach in companies. We're putting all that information together, and we're just giving it out to people, showing it to people in different ways so they can prepare themselves. So because of that, a lot of the work I'm doing today is bringing the information, ideally in a scalable way like Mindalia and other ways, so that a lot of people can say, hey, there's something happening here. If I want to stay in a company and have a corporate job, here's how I can maximize who I am, my strengths, all that, and play really well in a company. If you want to do your own thing and become an entrepreneur, we're also going to give you other tools and other information so you can get the access to that and become a great entrepreneur and know how to leverage system, tools, and trends. So a lot of the work I'm doing right now, I'm doing keynotes at companies, I'm doing speeches, we're doing the coaching, both individual and group coaching. The next phase is to provide more and more online courses so people can also take advantage of all this information. So that's the next phase for us, is providing some of these lessons and knowledge in a way that is very easy for people to absorb and consume.
Amazing. Where can we find, where can our audience find you?
Yeah, they can find me in two places. So our website, latinoleadership.net, that is www.latinoleadership.net, or they can follow me on Instagram at Jose Pinero 1. I'm easy to find online. So, you can find my name or Latino Leadership. And there you will find a lot of the information we're putting out. We just launched our first, series of podcasts. So we're interviewing some of the most influential Latinos to hear exactly how they made it, what lessons they learned, what advice do they have. And I think it's super important to share that information with other Latinos so we can empower our people to do better.
Outstanding. Amazing. I'm really thrilled about this conversation we're having today, Jose. So
Great.
Useful. We're going to help so many people. Thank you.
I really hope so. The purpose is to help people help themselves. Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's go to the questions with your permission. So the first question is, what could make an employer not feel well in their job?
Yes.
An employer,
I can answer that. Yeah. So I'll give a couple of examples. Let's say your manager thinks that you are too emotional. If you get that feedback, hey, Maria, I think you're doing a good job overall, but you're too emotional. You hear that, and the moment you hear that, you go, oh, the guard is up. I need to be careful. I need to not be who I am. Latinos, we get also, this is kind of funny, but we get this one. Oh, you're too loud. And people can confuse our volume of the voice or our expression with being angry or being too loud, and we're just passionate. We're driven, right? So again, hey, it's when you get the subtle messages that you need to tone it down. When your manager doesn't ask you about you as a person, about your friends or your family, how was your weekend, or if you're not sure, when we coach people, we ask this question. We always ask, describe your relationship with your manager. And they start talking about it. And the punchline is, do you think your manager has your back? Because I'll tell you this, in a corporate job, if your manager doesn't have your back, you only have 3 options. Find another job or another role or another manager, right? Leave things the way they are, which doesn't work because that's going to go downhill, or work on fixing the relationship. But if your manager doesn't have your back and you don't feel that you can be yourself, that you're not going to succeed, because you're not going to get the promotion. You're not going to get the big project. Your manager has to say, Angel is great. He was the one who led the project, who grew the business by 15%. That's the answer you want. So it's a lot about not having to hide who you are. And we all, when somebody tells you, hey, you're doing so, I'm not sure how you're doing, automatically your performance goes down because you're on guard, you're worried, you're nervous. If you think my manager loves me and he thinks I'm great, then you can just take off and fly and do the best work ever.
Let me ask, this is a question from me after what you just said. Probably there's a few people out there that they cannot find another job. They really need that job. They really need that money.
Yes.
So what can they do to try to navigate that circumstance, that situation, knowing that for some reason they have to stay there. They have to do it. They have no other option. What's the best piece of advice?
We have coached people that have said to me, even though my manager doesn't love me or doesn't like me, I have to stay in this job because of the green card. I cannot even switch positions within the same company, right? So what we do is we work with them and we guide them through a process. The first part of the process is getting clarity on the objectives of their work, the success metrics. What are the goals? Because you have to have a conversation with your manager and say, hey, if I grow the business by 2%, that's success. If I reduce partner complaints by 10%, that's success. If I run 3 campaigns and they have this result, that's success. Because if you have clarity on that, and then 6 months later you come back and you show your manager, here's what I did, and I hit all my metrics, your manager cannot say that you're not being successful. So it's about negotiating that. And then we work a lot on the relationship. So for example, I'll just share this with you. A lot of Latino employees don't realize that part of their job is to make their manager successful. So my job has to be not only deliver my own project goals, but I have to be doing something that makes my manager successful. Because if I'm not doing that, I'm not really managing my career. And I know I'll give you another tip. People need to know that they not only have to manage and market their achievements to their boss, they have to market them to their boss's boss, because that's the person who's going to approve or deny your promotion. So if your boss's boss doesn't know what you do or what you accomplished in the last 6 months, you're not doing a good job at managing your career. So all those things, they sound very trivial, but they're deep. And once we start talking, then we get into the conversation of, okay, let's make a plan on how you're going to achieve that during the next 2 months, 5 months, or a year. Yeah.
Awesome. Outstanding. Thank you. Next question. As a Latino, I have worked in very non-Latino environment, and like 50% of the Latino crew felt rejected. The other half felt welcome. It was the same environment, the same employer. Why did this happen?
So I don't know the specifics of that case, but I'll tell you what we have seen. There are different factors or that can differentiate people within the Latino community. So one, it's preference of language, the understanding how great their English is, the accent, level of acculturation. We work with a lot of people who are in companies, and they tell us, oh, you know what? I'm the first person in my family who has a corporate job. Nobody else in their family had a corporate job before. Guess what? They have an extra weight because they feel sometimes that they don't belong because they didn't go to a prep school or they didn't play golf when they were kids and they had to have 2 or 3 jobs. So there are many factors like that. We also feel like a big factor that changes how people feel. Some Latinos who are in the professional work, they feel responsible for their parents' financial well-being. That's an extra burden that other people may not have. So there are a lot of factors, where you grew up, where you went to school, your neighborhood, the college you attended, whether you did summer internships, and also who are your friends, and that's why some people do better at feeling welcome than others. But ultimately, it's a very personal approach, and every person we work with is different. So it's all about understanding their background. Like even what number are they in the order of the kids or the siblings? Older kids tend to feel more responsibility. Younger kids tend to feel lighter and be more humorous because they were just, being cute and funny at home, and they still want to replicate that. So there's a variety of factors, but yeah, we have seen some groups do really well acculturating, other groups don't feel welcome.
That's a follow-up question from me again.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I would say that's an impression I have, but please tell me if that's true or not. Would you say that the amount of Latinos accessing the corporate world, we just mentioned that,
yeah,
would you say it's increasing?
Yes, I think it's increasing. Yeah, I think it's increasing. I think it's increasing, but companies are having a hard time retaining Latinos. And if you see diversity reports from companies, especially in the tech world and other the finance world, the numbers of retention are not great. They're not encouraging. So we see more people coming in, but there's still a brain drain on the other side.
Why would you say that's the case?
I think companies are doing a better job at attracting them and letting them know about opportunities up front. But then when people go into the companies, they are very excited, they grow a little bit, and then at some point their career stalls, or they don't feel welcome, or they don't feel that they are on the fast track. And that's the point where they go like, this is not the place for me. So we're working a lot on that retention piece. I think other people are doing great work in the attraction piece. We work on the retention.
So do you think that corporations are acknowledging this retention problem?
Some of them are starting to, by publishing reports and openly talking about it. But I think we're still in the early phases of educating a lot of companies about these issues.
And from the attraction part, do you think that companies are wanting and are willing and are proactively pursuing to hire Latinos?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I've seen more and more, and it's not just my opinion. Other people have seen more and more efforts participation in different, networks and conferences, and that also, that's in a way that's easier to do. Because on that one, it's more marketing and outreach. The other one is more about modifying the culture of the company, and that of course takes longer and more work.
And why would you say, what do you think is the value that corporations see in Latino workers?
Well, Latinos right now, we're 57 million Latinos in the United States of America. That number is going to grow to about 130 million. So think about this. Latinos are going to be a third, 33% of the US population by year 2040, 2050. So companies that are smart will want to have in their employees and in their talent pool people that mirror the communities they serve, the clients they sell to. So we need to embrace that. Otherwise, think about the opposite. If, let's say, a company completely rejects Latinos, they're automatically cutting off a third of the potential talent pool. That could be disastrous for a company. So we all have to get on with the program. Companies need to embrace this. I don't think it's a question of whether they're going to do it. The question is at what speed and how fast will they do it.
Awesome. Extraordinary. Thank you. It's so much fun. I mean, it's just amazing how we can really help so many people today with this conversation. So really, thank you. Thank you. Let me go to the next question. Is coexistence of a 50-50% responsibility of both the locals and the foreign? This question is coexistence. I don't know. I don't personally understand the question well. Do you?
I don't understand the question either. Yeah.
No, I don't know. Do you have any context, locals and foreign, about both groups? Which locals and which foreign? Oh, the Latinos and, hold on a second, I'm just being read a little bit.
Maybe the person is asking about US-born versus foreign-born Latinos.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Right on. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, to me, it's about levels of acculturation and also, education level, professional experience. And here's what I would say. We specialize mostly on, professional environments, large corporations, but the same applies to a small business or a mid-sized company. If you have a company that has 50 employees and you have 15 of those being Latinos, you want to make sure that they feel welcome. And by the way, I can say exactly the same thing about women, about African Americans, about Asian Americans, or other groups. It's the same. You want to create a culture that welcomes people that have different backgrounds, different heritage, different ways of thinking, different abilities, all kinds of diversity, different religious thoughts, different nationalities, because that's the future of the world. And by understanding more, you drive more community, you drive more cooperation, the work is better, the output is greater. So it's all good. It's all good. I know sometimes it can take work on the company side and also the employee side, but everybody wins. If we make Latinos in the US more successful, we're making the entire country more successful.
Excellent. Thank you. Next question. What is the biggest myth or misconception you have found regarding both social groups?
About Latinos overall?
Yes.
Well,
Between I would say Latinos and Americans, I guess.
Okay. So a few things. One, a big misconception that we found, that this is very surprising in some research we did, especially with super successful, highly influential Latinos. There's a myth, and the myth is that when people see somebody who's super successful, outsiders tend to think, oh, he or she did it alone. It's like the lone champion story. Oh, like this person created a product and that revolutionized the world and he's super successful, or she created a movement. And so that's a myth. Nobody achieves a great level of success by himself or herself alone. Everybody had business partners, sponsors, mentors, helpers, assistants, other people, like, everybody had somebody that helped them. So that, and we love media, and Hollywood loves to idolize, the story of the champion, he or she alone, went out. That doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. Another myth that we found, which is pretty interesting. People tend to think that, such and such person, he or she's very successful. They think they had it easy, and they think that everything flowed the right way. And what we have found is that, for example, a guy who became the president of the Hispanic Association on Corporate Responsibility, Sid Wilson, he wanted to be a broker. He went to 25 companies, and all of them said no. No, thank you, but no thank you. So you know what he did? He offered to work for free in the mailroom of a brokerage firm. That's how he got started. And then he was able to become the #1 rated Wall Street analyst in the retail sector. So, another person that I heard about a month ago, he's doing a financial services startup. He wanted to raise capital funds, venture funding. He got 127 no's. So he heard no 127 times. So I'm saying those things because sometimes we romanticize the stories and we think, he or she's successful, everything went perfectly. If I were in his shoes, I would do it the same way. And the answer is, they didn't do it alone, and they all faced incredible obstacles and took rejection after rejection.
Wow, amazing stories. That was the last question. Jose, it's been an amazing conversation with you today. We really, really, really appreciate you being here with Mindalia TV tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I hope this information will be useful to people. And again, it's all about what we can do, the service that we can provide, and hopefully either inspire people to think about bigger, greater opportunities. And number two, hopefully share some of the information that will be helpful to them so they can become, as successful as they dream.
Awesome. Again, could you please remind us where can we find you?
Yes, my website is www.latinoleadership.net, and I can also be found on Instagram at Jose Pinero 1. So that's it, latinoleadership.net or Jose Pinero on Instagram and other platforms.
Fantastic. Again, Jose, thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure to have you here tonight. And again, to our audience, this is Angel Rebo. Thank you very much for being with us tonight, and hope to see you soon, really, in the near future. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.